I was walking backwards and I stepped in the hole. Fell. It was just toxic.
Call this meeting to order. Please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Roll call for the record. Mayor Lindsay,
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Crane,
Here.
Counselor Howe,
Here.
Counselor Wiggs is not present, Counselor Curry,
Here.
we have a quorum, you may proceed.
At this time, I ask for a motion to approve the agenda.
Make a motion to approve the agenda.
I second. All in favor?
Aye.
I could please get a motion to approve the consent agenda.
Make a motion to approve the consent agenda.
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any requests or responses from the audience this afternoon?
No.
Not, we'll move on to new business. Item A, I could open discussion to approve moving forward with the purchase of workforce housing units. Manager here.
Yes, Mayor, Council, I have several documents here that I'm gonna, oh, actually, I stapled some. Did,
He's here.
Is Rocky
He's
on?
having some technical difficulties, but we're on.
I'm
You're welcome.
So, just so you know, I'm doing the presentation, but, I have Rocky here. He's the one who did all the work. So I just put it in a format to try and present to council. Actually, if you could flip to the back page. This is the basis of the question that I have for the council. We have three different options for moving forward with workforce housing. And they have different advantages and disadvantages. There are some other minor advantages and disadvantages that aren't on this page, but these are the major ones that I think that we need to consider when we make a final decision on which option to move forward with. I was expecting Sustainability Partners. We had sent them an invite to join just so that they could comment as we go through this, if they need be. So these are the three options. I'm gonna go over them real quick, then we're gonna dig into some numbers, and then we're gonna come back and consider the pros and cons. So option one is to buy the remainder of the units, which would be 24 units, from Sustainability Partners. That option gives us the ability to have enough grant money left to do curb, gutter, and asphalt in the complex. All right, that's a key component of this decision. Do we want curb, gutter, and asphalt, or are dirt with base course, dirt roads with base course surface sufficient? I don't want to speak for him, but Director Epler has said our main concern was the water and the runoff. And because with curb and gutter, it's going to be much more directed. But to be compliant with our SWIFT and other compliance that we have to meet, to make sure the drainage is appropriate. Director Epler has assured me that with base course roads, we can be in compliance with the runoff requirements. Base course, so the curb and gutter and asphalt versus base course is the big question. And that frees up quite a bit of money if we choose to go with base course instead of curb, gutter, and asphalt. And so the question became, well, what do we want to do with this money if we don't do curb, gutter, and asphalt? It was actually, again, Director Epler who came up with the idea. Well, it seems pretty simple, but he said it out loud first. Why don't we buy more units or pay down the units that we are going to be going through Sustainability Partners to acquire? And so that kind of started looking at this. And then there are other factors that came into play in making this decision. And it is something that, I would have preferred to have gone through the committee to get here and have them make a recommendation. But when we had done the walkthrough of the housing units for the initial people that moved in, by the way, we right now have 3 different families living in those units, and the other 3 will move in on Saturday. I was there with a couple of the committee members and had mentioned this because this all happened recently, like within, I don't know when you made that recommendation, Kurt. It was right before the last council meeting. So that's how new this whole concept has kind of become. I mean, there was a little bit of consideration, but the whole curb and gutter thing, whether or not we spend the money on that, didn't really arise until just prior to that last meeting. And it really got us thinking through the whole process of how we want to move forward. So I did present it to them. Unfortunately, they're not going to have a meeting until April the 2nd. And I thought that I wanted to bring this forward to you now. Now, in a normal year, it probably wouldn't have been that big of a rush because a lot of the work we still couldn't do because the ground would be frozen. But now the ground's not frozen, which frees us up to do work and to get ahead of the game. And there are competing projects that we have to think about as far as assigning staff to these projects. So we still have work to do at Workforce Housing. It's not 100% done. Kurt still has more work to do. But with the weather like it is, we could literally start on the new fire station, I don't know, probably a week from Monday, after we get all the testing and permits and stuff. Mm-hmm. So approximately a week from Monday, we could start. We've already actually started a little bit, moving some of the trees and stuff, but the real overX work could start in, a little over a week. So it changed the whole time schedule on everything. And so I just didn't want to wait until April the 2nd to make a decision. You can decide to do that, but I wanted to give you the option to make a decision now so that we can get ahead of the game and start scheduling our workload out for the summer. Because I think we could start now and who knows what weather is in our future. And so we have these beautiful days like today that we can take advantage of. But before we proceed, we need to understand what the council wants to do and which direction the council wants to go. That was the purpose of this meeting, this special meeting. And yeah, I mean, it's only a couple of weeks, but you know, if you wanna wait till April the 2nd, you can. It'll really, you know, unless we have a special council meeting, it'll really be, April the 14th or 13th?
It's the 14th.
14th is the next scheduled council meeting after April the 2nd. And now we're mid-April, and it'll just seem like a whole month went by that we could have been doing work. And a month is a lot of time in our calendar with our schedule, because who knows, we may get a blizzard, the worst blizzard in history in October next year. So we need to be prepared for that. So option one is to buy the remainder of units from Sustainability Partner and have curb and gutter. Option two is we have the funds, and we'll look at in a minute where those funds come from. We have the funds for us to buy 7 more units. And then Sustainability Partners said, if you buy 7 more units, we still want to purchase the remainder. So they would purchase 17 units and effectively lease them back to us. Then the third option is to buy 7 more units. And I don't know if y'all know or not, but this year at the legislature, there were many requests for workforce housing dollars. So like last year, the amount that was budgeted was $3 million. We got 2.9 of it for the whole state. This year, the governor, they've included in the budget $26 million in workforce housing funds. And instead of giving those out as appropriations, the governor gave that 26 million to Housing New Mexico. And now we officially have to go through Housing New Mexico, just like we did for the first 2.9 million, and apply for the 4.2 million that we had requested as an appropriation. Now, our lobbyist has guaranteed me that the governor says 4.2 of that is your money. And I hope he's true. And, you know, I want to count on that money, but this is politics. There's a lot going on. And if I've learned anything in politics is you can't count on anything until you've spent it. Even having it in the bank isn't sufficient. You got to spend it. And that's when you can really count on having that money. So given the fact that 4.2 million out of 26, you know, we've had this successful program that really is right now is the talk of the state. I mean, people are talking about workforce housing and Angel Fire and how quickly did it. Because you got to keep in mind, you know, I don't want to put anybody down, but there are municipalities very close to us that got approximately $1 million and still have nothing to show for it. And with our 2.9, we already have 6 units and we still have 1.7 left to spend.
And that's where we would get the money to pay for the 7. Is that what you're saying?
Right, we'll go through that in just a second. So we have 4.2 that our lobbyist says we should count on. We have to apply for in July, but the earliest that we'll have that money is in October. So we apply for it in July, we'll have access to the money in October, which means we can't spend any of that money until we have access to it, right? So that means if we get 4.2 million in October and we have a normal winter, we may be looking at next August before the units get installed. Just the timing of it, because, and maybe it could be quicker than that, but it's not gonna be quicker than next June. So anyhow, those are the 3 options that I have And so now what I'd like you to do is turn back to the first page. And let's talk about this report real quick that goes over all the numbers. So I'm gonna look at the columns at the top, and the first column says original estimates. So this is the budget that we pulled together, primarily, again, Rocky's the one who did the work. Pulled together this budget for Workforce Housing Project. A couple of things I wanna point out to you that are here. Number one, the very first number on the first line is $500,000. Because this is a reimbursement grant, we had to take $500,000 out of the general fund and put it in the Workforce Housing Fund, so it had some cash to operate off of. Technically, the Workforce Housing Fund still owes the village that money. And what's another thing is you'll see the number right below that, 265,000. Even though that's not currently shown in our due tos and due froms, that also is money spent by the general fund to buy the land. Technically, the Workforce Housing Fund owes the general fund that money as well. So right now, the Workforce Housing Fund, just looking at it so far, is in debt $765,000 to the general fund. And that's money we needed to get this project started. So the next column, and then the rest of the numbers here are just the budget. It's just the items that we were, never done this before. We were kind of guessing on a lot of them. What expenses are we gonna have? We were rounding up. But if you go to the back page in that column, you'll see that our original budget was to put in all 30 units, was gonna cost $3.3 million. And we had 2.9 in grants. So we were gonna actually be out of pocket approximately $400,000 at the end of the project. And we anticipated that. For us to spend that money was, something we wanted to do. We did believe that the Workforce Housing Fund would eventually be able to pay that money back to the general fund, because that $400,000 is coming out of the general fund. Because at this point, it's not making any money. And as Workforce Housing started collecting rents, there would be what we would call profit. We technically don't have profit, but there would be money left over after expenses from the rents, and we would use that money to pay the general fund back over time, probably 10 years, to pay the general fund back. And that was the plan from the get-go. Now, when I say we, I'm not talking about just my team, the council agreed to all this stuff. We were aggressive in wanting to get it done, and rightly so, because if we had not had such a bad winter, we still wouldn't have any units in. And we were aggressive, believe me. There are people that were unhappy with me because we pushed so hard on this, mainly Rocky, but Kurt also and others, about how hard we pushed. Because everybody wanted this done fast. It's a lot of work. And we have limited resources. So, and part of that effort, we decided to buy the land and to go ahead and start the engineering work before we had money in our pocket on the grant. And it's part of that actually helped us with the grant because the project was shovel ready. But it cost us $86,000 to get this project shovel ready. And that's money the grant won't reimburse us. So that's coming out of the $500,000 that we loaned to the to the Workforce Housing Fund. And again, eventually, the Workforce Housing Fund will pay us that money back with rents, that, excess rents. So if you look in that next column, it says actual expenses before June 2nd. These are dollars that we will not get reimbursed for from the grant. We have to pay these expenses out of our funds. Again, initially paid out of general fund dollars. The general fund will be repaid out of rent dollars for that money. Does that make sense? Any questions?
Well, so on that, just on, obviously I see Rocky's travel, but the 359,000,
Well, we just included all the expenses. So Rocky
I
went,
just see that one line item, but I'm just saying, the number is 360,000.
Yeah, that would be the addition, I believe, of the purchase price of the home and the engineering work from page one, as well as, line of sight survey.
basically
not-
360,000, including the purchase of the land.
But that's gonna be the total amount that's not, that already out of the general fund that will not be reimbursed.
Or is that part of the 500,000?
I know we've spent 765,000. 360 of it we can't get back. From the grant.
All right, now, so let's make sure there's two different things. From the grant, 366,000, we cannot get back from the grant. But that money was paid by the general fund from a loan. And but it will be paid back to the general fund over time. It's what, in the accounting world, we call it a due to, due from. So as you loan money between funds, it's like debt. The council could decide to waive it, but I'm not gonna recommend
But
that
it's not
because
coming from the grant.
that's right, it's not coming from the grant.
But is that number inside that 765,000? Is that 360,000 part of the 765,000?
Yes,
So about half of what we spent already, we're not getting reimbursed for.
From the grant.
Eventually we will.
Yes,
but yeah.
from the grant.
yeah, so far, we've spent $360,000 that we're not gonna get reimbursed from the grant.
Well, and I think as you pointed out, like, we likely got the monies that we did, cause we got 2 buckets of monies. Initially, we were only supposed to get 2.5.
That's
And
right,
they gave us another 400 grand because they saw we were ready to go. We had the
That's
dirt,
right.
we had the engineering plan, so if we don't spend that 360,
Well, no, we did the right thing.
Yeah.
Just said clarification purposes, I understand.
yeah, okay, I get what you're saying, yeah, so. Yeah, so basically, technically, I think I said 7, I gave you the wrong number. Technically, the general fund has spent $860,000. No, that's not right. The general fund has spent $765,000.
That's what I have written down.
Of this 360, about 90,000 of it is coming out of the 500 that we loaned them. I don't wanna make it more complicated.
You are, but no, I understand what you're saying. I think my question was, is that 360,000 was inside that 765,000?
That's correct.
My question. Okay, I think
That's
we're on the same page, unless anybody else needs more clarification or confusion. Okay. I think we're good to proceed.
Okay, I apologize, yeah. Sometimes it's hard, stuff
No,
makes
it's
sense
the
to
numbers.
me.
I understand. I think everybody does.
Okay, so then if you look at the next 3 columns, these are the reimbursements that we've received on the grant so far. So we had one in November, and if you go to the back page, you'll see that the one in November was $770,000. The one in December was $216,000. And the one in January was $126,500. One other thing I wanna point out, if you look on the first page in January, there's an item in red. What happened was, in a prior application for reimbursement, we'd included some items that didn't qualify, and they paid us for them. And then it got caught later that they didn't qualify, so they subtracted those amounts from that third payment. And that's just showing that right there. And with that red highlighted item, that's just a credit from things that we submitted for grant reimbursement that didn't qualify. Now, not the last column, but the next column with the gray are our projections for the remaining expenditures we have to finish the project. So you can see in the gray area, we're saying that we have 675 left to spend on this project to finish the project. That's infrastructure work. That's everything except curb and gutter,
And the houses.
okay? In the housing, that's correct. So, yeah, so if you look right below on the back page, if you flip to the back page in that column, you'll see where it says 674, 497, 85. And then the number right below that is the remaining balance on the grant. So after we spend that 674, 497, we're gonna have basically 1.1 million of the grant left to spend. So now the question is, what do we do with that 1.1? Do we buy curb and gutter? It's gonna take almost all of it, if not all. Or, following Kurt's idea, which I think was simple but brilliant, we could buy more units with that money. And you might say, well, why would we want to do that if Sustainability Partners can do them all? Well, keep in mind, the rent off the units we own, we get to keep the rent, 100% of it. Now, we're gonna have some expenses, and those are shown down below. Some of the expenses we're budgeting for the future, but it's our money. Now, if we let Sustainability Partners, we gotta come up with a price to charge for rent where we can pay our lease payments to Sustainability Partners and still cover the other expenses that we're gonna have in relation to the housing. So, by the way, so of that 1.1 million, if you look below, right now, the quotes from ZIA are to get, now we could spend more, there's a higher end unit, but to get the unit that we think is right, it's actually a better R factor than the current units. It is still paneled walls, but it's a little bit nicer unit than the ones we've already bought, but very similar in appearance. It's mainly better insulation and some things of that nature that make it a better unit than the ones we currently have. So those units are 155.9. Now, the reason we could go with the higher end unit and it would add, it was gonna add about 15,000, Rocky, I can't remember, was it 15,000 more per unit? So that's what we would get. It's the same unit, it's just tape and textured walls instead of panel and a metal roof instead of composite. Now, the issue is that Sustainability Partners, if we're gonna involve them, they've gone to their finance people and they pitched this unit at basically 155, and the cost that they're gonna charge us is $12.50 a unit per month. And we're gonna have to charge a little bit more than that If you see up above, my recommendation is 1,300. And the only reason we can get away with only increasing that $50 is because the money we're gonna make off the first units are gonna basically supplement the cost of the second one. So the 13 covers the cost of Sustainability Partners, but it doesn't cover the administration, it doesn't cover the maintenance, it doesn't cover the insurance. And those things would be supplemented by the units that we own to keep that cost down. So anyhow, and actually I'm gonna add a little bit more to that in just a minute when we flip the page back or go to the last page. And we'll talk about what that would really cost us if we weren't able to supplement the expense of the Sustainability Partner units with owned units money. If we're not able to do that, the cost of the Sustainability Partner units are gonna be much more, in the $1,600 range.
That's an option one.
So anyhow, these are some rough numbers. There are some numbers that aren't included in here, which is the cost of maintenance. And instead of just pulling something out of the air, these are new units. They are under warranty to certain aspect, but we are gonna have turnover and there's gonna be maintenance and there's gonna be damage, and we don't know what that cost is. We're gonna try and do as much of it in-house as possible to keep the cost down. But if, somebody breaks a window and moves out, if they break the window and they're still under lease, we can charge them for the broken window. But if, we don't know about damage to it until after they've moved out, we might be able to collect something, but the reality is, in today's world with renters' rights, it's very hard to collect anything once they've moved out. You spend as much money on lawyers trying to collect it as you would get out there. So there are gonna be some additional expenses. We don't know what those are in relationship to maintenance. And instead of just guessing wildly, I just chose to give this explanation. But it could be another $5,000, it could be another $15,000 for 30 units, maintenance cost. It just depends on what happens. I don't know. Once we get a year under our belt, I think we'll have a better idea. We'll be able to include those costs in our budget more accurately, but right now,
Under the Sustainability Partner ones, did they cover the maintenance?
They do
to
have
some
to
degree,
some degree, but not like that, not like turnover type maintenance, no.
yeah.
Major maintenance, security deposit. right?
Major, well, yeah, but as you know, the deposits are not enough to cover.
A lot of the things.
To Brett's point, but yes, short answer, Sustainability Partners, they have money for scheduled maintenance for the life of the home, as well as like a life of the appliances and swapping those out. But yeah, just day-to-day renters.
Yeah, so in their quote, I think they were looking at a 5% contingency for unknown cost that's included in their number. Now, who knows what's gonna happen, but I will tell you this, Rocky and I know Kurt, learned a ton about getting one of these places set up, a lot of it the hard way. But now we feel pretty confident that we've got it dialed in to what needs to be done to get these units in place. And so I feel a lot more comfortable with our projections now than I did when we first came to you, over a year ago, and with these original budgets.
Do you mind if I ask Kurt a question?
I'd just like to get him on camera, if that's okay.
So a big portion of this hinges on the asphalt curb and gutter. And I trust Kurt 100% if he says we don't need it, but I'd like, if you could explain a little further, because I know the reason it was originally engineered into the project was because we were going so dense. We didn't have room to put culverts and.
And bar ditches.
Bar ditch.
Yeah.
So if you could just explain to me how this is gonna drain properly without the asphalt curb and gutter.
Well, in envisioning that, say we did put 7 houses, as soon as you turn up Rocky Road, those 7 houses would be split on either side. The parking areas that serve each of those blocks that are gonna have those 4, well, we will go ahead and put pipe underneath the entrance for the water to run through, so it's not cutting across the parking area. Pipe is gonna be, it's not gonna be real expensive to put it in, but essentially all the mass grading is designed to have the water flow downhill and towards the road and then come right down the side of the road. So we'll have the space to do a drainage swell for that water to run down. But where the parking areas are gonna be, it would have 2 runs of pipe right there. When we do get to the point where we're doing curb and gutter, the pipe gets pulled out, regraded to account for the curb and paved, so.
Have you had any of this discussion with Tappan?
Yes, preliminary discussions, he didn't seem to have an issue with it.
So you're suggesting then sometime down the road, you'd still have the option to put the curb and gutter back if
Yeah.
funds allowed, just not put the housing in first and then do the curb and gutter later as money allows.
If we ever chose to do so.
Well, obviously, the hope would be that come October, we get funded, from the state to pay off the rest of the houses and do the paving, curb and gutter.
So that.
I think there's, the goal of doing the paving, curb and gutter still needs to remain in final build out.
Got it. You're just changing the sequence.
Yeah, again, I mean, as quick as these 6 filled up and what the demand seems to be and if there's an opportunity to get more, and as Manager Weir said, some more at a lower rental rate, you know, that was a big factor. 1,100 a month with free water and sewer, it's pretty tough
Pretty
to
affordable,
be
yeah.
anywhere. So,
I just heard yesterday that 2 bedrooms in Taos right now, apartments are going for $2,700 a month.
And they're in Taos, they're not up here.
Right,
It's nice.
right. I guess
Sorry.
on the phase 2, and then maybe this is a Rocky question, cause I can't imagine Housing New Mexico would have any problems with us. We're still spending the money on the same project, on the same site, we're just gonna, you know, move the sequence around a little bit, but the money we think we're gonna get, that 4.2, was that specifically written up as phase 1, or can it be phase 1 or phase 2, or does it, when we've?
That's a Rocky question.
Yep. Right, but then I wanna make sure that that 4.2 that we think we're gonna get later this year, when I mean, I know there's gonna be an application process, it sounds like through Housing New Mexico, but we're gonna have to specify.
I think in the application, we'll have to specify how we're gonna use it. We're gonna need to file that application in July. So it's another reason to get all this figured out. So if that's what we're gonna apply for is curb and gutter for phase 1 plus land purchase and additional units for phase 2, that probably is gonna need to be in the application.
I guess that would be my question is, are they gonna be okay having that new money split into old and new projects? Or are they gonna force our hand to say, no, all these new funds need to go to a new project?
Yeah, I could guess if you want me to.
But we won't know that until June,
I
July.
think, you know, we had an event with tourism that I attended in Housing New Mexico or Mexico Housing or whatever they're called, was there. And they spent a lot of time in our booth because they are just, again, we're the talk of the state when it comes to workforce housing. And so they're, at least my interpretation, talking to their director is, you know, they're very happy with us, you know, the speed at which we're moving and the results that we're getting, and it makes them look good. And I think if we can justify it, we could go either way. But again, I don't know, the other thing we need to, considering though the application will be under this administration, and come January, we're gonna have a new administration, so that's another unknown.
I guess I wouldn't wanna count on being able to go back and do the curb and gutter and asphalt out of the new funds until we've seen that application.
I thought the new funds would pay off the additional homes and do the curb and gutter in phase one, and then if there was something left.
I think these are all just scenarios as to how we apply.
No, I don't, I mean, we've talked about ways to use the money, but my guess is they're gonna wanna see more homes out of 4.2. I don't think they're gonna, I don't know, they might let us pay it off, but quite frankly, I'd rather figure out how to do phase one and go start working on phase two and get more homes.
So it sounds like if we go without curb and gutter now. So in other words, if we do option one, we get curb and gutter. If we do two, there's a good chance we won't be doing asphalt curb and gutter.
I would say it's definitely a possibility, yes.
At least for some extended
And
period of
I will
time.
tell you, in my personal opinion, you know, I don't know, I'm not an engineer or anything, but I've had people comment that of the dirt roads, that's the best dirt road in Angel Fire.
It's brand new. That's brand new. It's relatively flat in town. I mean, don't get me wrong, but the vast majority of people live on dirt roads here, and I don't think that's the end of the world. I would rather see more homes personally paid for than asphalt curb and gutter. I do wanna ask our finance director of the three options what his preference would be, and maybe you can speak for him, or maybe he has an answer prepared, but I think his input's valued.
Mr. Mayor Council, I would tend to agree that, putting homes is probably the better, when you're trying to, as far as optics go, bang for the buck, putting more houses in is probably the option I would go with.
So if I'm ranking them, I'm ranking option two as my first choice. Option three is my second choice, and option one is my third. That's what so I mean, as a finance director, would you agree in those rankings?
Yes.
Can I ask a question? So the original grant money, when they put it in, it included the asphalt gutters in the grant money. If we shift and don't use that money for asphalt and gutters, is that like a violation of the grant?
So keep in mind, the original 2.9 million was for infrastructure, not to buy any homes. We went to them and said, oh, we wanna use it to buy homes, and they're like, fine.
Well, and keep
So
in
they're
mind,
flexible.
They've been very flexible
the whole
so far.
reason this project is as successful as is Director Epler, because if we'd have taken this out they would have burned the whole 2.9 million.
In
And
infrastructure.
we'd have lots and curb and gutter, but we wouldn't have any homes.
Yeah, that's true. Kurt's people, I don't know, what would you say the value of your staff's work was?
Well, I can do the math. You just extrapolate that and
Yeah.
it tells you right there.
Initially, we didn't, it wasn't a formal, engineer's estimate, but when we first got the grant money, our engineer's initial assessment was that the $2.9 million wouldn't be enough to get the utilities in and the pavement and curb and gutter.
And I have to, I would agree with that. So the fact that we're this far without, and I think that Housing New Mexico is gonna be happier that we stretched that $2.9 million to this degree. I think they're gonna be excited to fund this and they're not gonna be too worried about it. Again, I don't know either, but I would think that it looks a lot better to have units here than it does just to have a place to put houses.
Well, it sounds like we're gonna move forward with more houses in any of these options. I mean, what would preclude you from just starting the prep work on them? Like, if that's part of the thing, why wouldn't we just start doing the prep work?
So,
Option three would just be 7. Prep for the remaining 24. I guess that's kind of the question.
But I mean, in the
so
next month, how many
here's where
could
we
you
would
prep?
have no houses, is, let's say that we did option one, and we spent the money on curb and gutter. and we did not get the 4.2 million. We're back to ground zero with no more houses. And we're working at trying to get more money for phase two. If we did that, if we did option one, I mean, if we did, option two, again, with that process, if we don't get the 4.2 million, we're gonna have to wait until we pay the general fund back. And after we pay the general fund back, then we can start accumulating the excess rents, to save up money, or we have to go fund additional grants.
I don't imagine that Housing New Mexico would have any problem, because it's still the same monies on the same project. We're just prioritizing the housing stock over the curb and gutter. And as long as, you know, our crew is comfortable doing that and we have a plan, I don't think they're gonna shoot that down at all. So I would tend to agree with the mayor that options 2 and 3 get us more housing here, this year. I mean, we could do option 1, it would still get the housing here and the asphalt curb and gutter, but we're gonna go from units that are charged at $1,100 a month to $1,650 a month, and not that that's bad, but when the preliminary conversations around phase 2 have all been around, you know, more of a modular product or a higher rent product. And so I would hate to see the phase 1 price start to get anywhere near where we think phase 2 might be. And then just from an affordability perspective, 11 versus 16s, you're gonna chase some people out that way, I think.
So one thing I'd like to add that still is an unknown is if we got appropriations, typically we would not have received the income limitations that we have by going through Housing New Mexico.
Right.
Now that the 4.2 is going through Housing New Mexico, we don't know yet, but it's likely that we're gonna have those income limitations attached to it. And that may challenge us with going to modular.
But at least the same, Rocky had to negotiate very hard. We got them to basically give us double Colfax County, cause they only do it on a county level AMI. They won't drill down into the town level. And average income in Angel Fire is about double Colfax County. So right now, we had 2 of the 10 applicants rejected for making too much money,
I think only one. We had 2 rejected, but only one was because of no much.
Well, I thought it was
Made too much.
a roommate scenario. Between the 2 of them, they didn't qualify.
Yeah, Rocky.
Yeah.
What was it, Rocky?
But to the manager's point, if those income limits do come in to play for phase 2, and we do wanna go with a different product for phase 2, it's gonna give you a real narrow band of people who can afford a $1,800 a month rent, but also don't make too much money, right? You're gonna have this real narrow group of people that will qualify there.
Yeah, to be honest, if that happens, my recommendation is gonna be that we go with 1 and 2 bedrooms in phase 2, because if you're single, at the income rate, if you're single, you can, you know, the amount of money is a reasonable amount of money make to live in something nice like that.
But then they're in an apartment scenario, because and the committee looked at that, and it was cheaper, or it didn't make sense to not do the 3-bedroom. Right.
So I will tell you that there are some modulars that we're looking at that are apartment type modulars, which bring the cost down a fair amount. It's just some research that Rocky's been doing, and he found at least one organization that does modulars, but they're apartment complexes, or duplexes, or triplexes.
Let me ask another question. Of those 6 that went out to application, I mean, can we gauge the true demand? I mean, we always thought we wouldn't have a problem filling 30 of them. One thing I wouldn't wanna do is have some sitting empty if we have a note to sustainability partners.
I think the surveys done by the committee are gonna hold true. in my opinion. I will tell you that Rocky can make sure about it. I think we only opened up applications for like a 10-day period and we turned it off. Because at the property manager's request. And so we're gonna, once we figure out what we're gonna do here, we're gonna start that application process again early. And I think you'll see that we'll have a lot more applicants. How long did we have it open, Rocky?
No, that's great news. And then there's still no guarantee that Sustainability Partners are gonna come through. They still have to go through their process with their investors. But how
So
to gauge your
they've done
level of
through,
confidence.
well, we actually had a meeting on, when was it, Rocky, Tuesday? Monday? Anyhow, we had a meeting and one of the board members from their finance attended that meeting. And, it's true, it's not 100%, but I would put it at 80 to 85%. They wanna be part of this project. So they're in the final stages of financing. What they're actually waiting on right now is for us to tell them how many units we want them to buy. And they're okay with whatever we choose. They're happy with 17, they're happy with 24. They're willing to do, at one point, we were talking about them only doing 15, and they were okay with that. The reason we backed off that is because we ended up having less money than we thought after we did projections for additional spending. So that's when the number
Should we?
went from 9 down to 7.
Should we do 6 and 18, and then if we have money at the end, pay down a little debt?
We could, I mean, one of the options that's not really on
Versus
here,
going over and into the general fund?
one of the options that's not really on here is if we don't wanna do curb and gutter, we could buy down their cost of units. So we would pay for, it's $30,000 a unit for the foundation and the setup and the connect. We could pay for that, and then what their price to us would drop because their cost would drop. So that is an option. Yeah, it's not,
Yeah, I don't think it, I mean, I understand, but that would not take up all of our grant to do
well,
that.
it could,
It could.
if we wanted to.
Well, I definitely wanna take advantage of every dollar of the grant. I don't-
It's a long-term, to me, it's a long-term versus short-term play.
Yeah.
Because if we buy the units and own them, financially, we'll be better off in the long run. If we use the money to buy them down, which means pay for part of the expenses,
Interest over time will,
yeah, it's gonna cost us more money in the long run.
So if option 2 were the direction that we decided on, and if we shifted that 6 or 7 or whatever, the site itself, I know you guys did all the work for the infrastructure. How, for the other 24 sites, are those already staged and ready for the foundations and everything to go in? Or are you staged for the 7 and then need to do those and then switch to something else?
No, and I've been waiting to kind of come in because Councilman Curry kind of started to touch on that too. And what I want to clarify in the scenario where we do the 7 homes and don't do the curb and gutter, we would still do our portion of the site prep on the remaining 17 homes.
Okay.
So my goal would be to get everything set up to get these 7 homes in, but then get all the rest of the paths, sewer stub ups, water stub ups, grinder pump basins, everything in place, ready to literally do subgrade work with base course and park the houses on.
How do you feel about the option of never getting the curb and gutter asphalt?
Never getting curb and gutter, I'm not as comfortable with that as I am just dealing with it with 7 homes. You know, that's the tough thing, and like I said, initially the hope would be is, the challenge with getting the funding in October. My personal hope would be that if we got that money that funded in October, then we would be able to pay for the rest of the houses and do the curb and gutter in 2027.
I think to get that level of confidence, we probably need to have some conversations with Housing New Mexico to figure out, okay, this 4.2 that we're being told, can we split it? Because what we'd like to do is press hard on the housing and then be able to come back in and do the curb and gutter later. We don't want to leave it stranded. And then I don't think any of us want that scenario long term. But if we could get at least some kind of inside baseball from them on, hey, what are you seeing as far as, the income caps? Are we gonna be able to split this?
Sure.
Because that would be my concern, is at least having gone through it on the first phase, it's much cleaner if you give them, hey, here's a brand new shiny project and everything is included on this project. We're not building an old one. Now, if they wouldn't have a problem with it, and I think they would see what we're doing on prioritizing the housing, but yeah, that would be my concern as well. If we push too hard on this, we're gonna end up having to find a way to pay for the curb and gutter ourselves at some point.
Well, but there is another aspect of this, and as Manager Weir mentioned, that it was decided to go with curb and gutter because of the drainage element, due to spacing issues, because of how much we wanted to cram in there.
Yep.
I'm sorry, I see plenty of space to put in bar ditch if we need to.
Okay.
Now that equipment is in place, if any of y'all go out there, have them come in and stake, edge of road, and you can see that the components that we put in for power, water and fiber are far enough away from the edge of road. Obviously I'd wanna, confirm this with Tappan. But definitely, where it's tied is on the west side of the road, east side of the road, piece of cake. The houses aren't so crowded next to the road. It doesn't hurt to have the discussion with them of maybe looking at putting it back to the bar ditch design with culverting underneath the parking pads.
It's kind of a plan B in case, just in case.
Yeah.
I mean, we could always ask Julie to go out for a whole separate grant at some point.
We could have her, direct parking out there like she does. at the limits.
Well, I guess that would be the other way to do it. If we have any large scale asphalt projects that are gonna come up somewhere else in the village, does that make for a decent tack on, in other words?
Absolutely, if you can, and we actually did this, summer before last with the paving projects. We were able to reduce mobilization costs
Right.
because they were coming in doing multiple projects with one mobilization. One thing I am concerned about without doing the curb and gutter is, and I'll talk with Tappan about this, get his feeling on it, is see if we're gonna get any pushback from the state and not fully completing the entrance off of 434.
So that was gonna be my next question, and that's one thing that I kind of feel strongly about. I think it is a cluster currently with the Zeb's entrance, our road, the Builder Source Alpine entrance. At one time we talked about having them come off of our road into their unit, and I'd still like to see that. I think it's important that we keep DOT happy and make the entrance.
Well, we may be looking at a scenario where we do pave that initial portion past the entrance to Alpine Lumber and past the entrance to Zeb's. That's a potential.
I think that's something we need to consider.
Which probably, I mean, if we were gonna budget it, right, then take 2 of the 7 homes out. Do 5 homes and that initial entry
Well, when they initially ran the numbers, it showed that we could do 9 homes, but I threw some, other cost to Rocky that I could foresee we need to pat ourselves on.
Yeah.
Yeah, thinking that it would drop down to 8, so we dropped it to 7. So I feel pretty fair about the cushion that we have there. And, but my concern with that scenario right now is the current culvert underneath that entrance still needs to extend 12 feet to the north. We can't do that because that's right in the middle of the used entrance right now to Alpine. So there needs to be a coordination of building the new entrance to Alpine and abandoning the old one at the same
And
time.
they're still supportive of the plan, right? And-
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, they've seemed very excited
So
about
again,
it.
so I know you had some pushback from Zeb's, but, again, I'd sure like to see that all cleaned up and done correctly, whatever that is required there.
So it seems like we have a reasonable explanation for all of the unknowns. And if that's the case, then to me, option 2 is the first option.
I agree with Counselor Howe, I just wanted to, and I don't know if you wanna speak for the committee.
I don't think the committee is gonna have a problem. Manager Weir and I had talked about this over the last couple of weeks. The biggest want that my understanding is satisfied in these alternative housing plans is the gas heat was a big deal to them. And my understanding of these other housing options, they're not married to them being exactly the same, but as long as they are livable, affordable, and the gas heat was there simply to keep utilities down, in the winter season. I think, you know, whether it's Rocky or Manager Weir or myself or a combination of all three, it seems like the next conversation is gotta be with Housing New Mexico to make sure that we don't run afoul of changing the plan right now out of the 2.9 and figuring out how closely we're gonna be able to link this potential 4.2 to the 2.9, or if we need to separate those projects in our mind and in our planning entirely. I don't know if they'll be able to tell us that at this early date, but it's gotta be worth asking the question.
I agree, it's not gonna hurt to ask, but my guess is this all came about during the legislative session. They weren't anticipating this, it was something that the governor decided at the last moment. And so my guess is they're still scrambling, trying to figure it out themselves.
Yeah.
But it doesn't hurt, we can have Rocky call them and say,
I can't help but think that they're gonna be grateful if we go with more houses, less road.
I agree.
I agree. Any further questions or discussion?
I mean, would we have to pull the trigger on the sustainability partners before we would hear about the October thing?
Well, we want to,
If you want the housing this summer,
otherwise we're gonna look at next summer for those houses if we get the money.
I mean, can you really?
They have a-
Can you prep that many? Before they
Or we're ready,
ready?
we're all but ready.
The mass grading is basically there, it doesn't take too long to cut the pads out and then just run the utilities each. in.
Option 2, we have a total of 30 homes in place by the end of summer.
Is there, in phase 2, is there any way they could maybe increase the income or can't we maxed it or?
we pushed for the 2 times, and I think we're gonna have to go back and make the case to them, but we have so much more data to show them, okay, here's what we did,
Okay.
here's what the rents are. And the feedback I've gotten from some of the people that applied is, it's great to have more options, but because of how tight we've packed that, there are some families that, you know, there's not really a yard, parking is not right next to the structure, that phase 2, what we all want is to reach a little bit higher, but that's gonna depend almost entirely on if we can convince someone to let us raise the income caps.
The other things, we'll have a stack of denied applications
Yeah.
from phase 1, showing that there's a need and they still don't have a place to go.
Yeah, I think the partnership, I mean, the, 2 people living together, whatever, roommates would be greatly increased with a greater income potential, you know, if they raise that cap, is.
So again, it doesn't really affect this decision directly, but indirectly it does, I guess. My concern with phase 2, and I want modular, that's what I want to step up. The whole vision of this originally was 3 steps, each step a little bit higher in housing than the prior. But if we have income limitations tied to it and you can't get roommates or a married couple working together to qualify, that's what I'm saying. We may need to go to consider 1 bedrooms because the qualification for a single individual is really easy. I mean, what is it, Rocky? 93,000 a year? But then if you have 2 people, it's only like 120,000 a year.
And I don't want, obviously, we're not gonna discriminate to anyone, but I do like the fact that we're getting families moving into these homes.
I do too. I'm just saying, we may build a bunch of houses that nobody can qualify for.
So if we can make a decision, and it sounds like option 2 is what is getting broad support up here, you feel comfortable, I guess, Director Epler, doing all 24 of these? And I can't see him, but Chief Vance is back there somewhere. I'm sure he's gonna be vying for your time as well. Is that, are these all doable in the timelines that we have in front of us, or are we gonna be?
No, not at all. Actually, I did, thank you for bringing that up, because I did want to make it clear, be looking at mid-May before we start back on workforce housing. That's the scheduled time to have the over-X complete on the fire station.
Okay.
So that's when we'd be starting on that. We won't be able to start them both at the same time.
Got it.
So you would be able to have a committee meeting and.
Yeah, the committee meeting's already scheduled, I think, for the 2nd, Rocky, correct me if I'm wrong. And I think we present, sorry,
It's a second.
it's the 2nd.
2nd of April.
Yeah, so it's week after next is the committee meeting. Present this all to them. I don't anticipate them getting any pushback. If we can have the conversations with Housing New Mexico and see what we can get from them, you're staring down the April 14th date for a notice to proceed vote to acquire or order the houses. I see these, this vendor, and that was, I know, one of the pain points on the last. This one's in Albuquerque, so your transpo cost is gonna be a little less, and your time to get them here is gonna be a little quicker. So I think that sounds like it would line up okay with a May, start.
So I also, something that I've kind of mentioned to Director Epler, but we haven't really had a chance to get into a detailed discussion, so if this is a surprise to you, I apologize, but this vendor, Zia, told Rocky and I, look, we're used to going out to a raw piece of land and doing the complete install for this price. That means leveling the pad, doing the over-X, the foundation.
Transporting the unit.
Transporting the unit. The only thing is they don't do sewer or septic, and they need water and electric, to the pad. They don't do that. You need it to the pad. But they're used to doing, so from Kurt's perspective, we need to talk with them and understand this better. But they may be able to send their crews out because, the guy, Mike, that's the CEO of the company, has been out here and looked at our site. And in our meeting, unless I misunderstood him, Rocky, he's like, yeah, we'll finish it out for you for this price. Now, he's not gonna come put the.
So it's all making sense, but explain to me one more time why this decision needs to be made today.
Well, because I mean, the reason that I'd like to have the decision made sooner rather than later is because I wanna get started working on whatever we're gonna do. And it's true, we have some work to do at the fire station. We have and again, correct me if I'm wrong, but we need about a week to get all the testing and permits done. But then the process of actually doing the work out there is only 2 weeks. And if we can get all that work done and then the construction guys come in, that's gonna, if we do need Kurt's crew to finish it, then that's gonna get them on top of it. And what I don't wanna do is depend on another snowless winter to get these units in.
So trust me, I really do appreciate your sense of urgency, but it sounds to me like based on the fire station schedule, Kurt's availability back to workforce housing, I think we can continue to work with sustainability partners. I would steer them towards option 2 as the way we'd like to go, but I'd like to get the input from the workforce housing committee If we need to call a meeting, this is a special meeting, we need to call a special meeting following that.
Well, I asked them to do a meeting and that's the earliest that Elizabeth
That's what I,
said she was
but at the
available.
same time, I don't think that's too late. I mean, Kurt, would you agree? I mean, is it, if we have a decision for you in a month from now, or you're not gonna be back over there till mid-May?
Exactly.
So it sounds to me like, I think, I mean, this, we'll obviously need to table or postpone or whatever the proper action here is. It would be my recommendation, use this more of a work session. But I would like to get, just, there's a few little questions dangling and they're all small. I'm prepared to make a decision today, but I would feel better if the committee made their recommendation to us.
I don't disagree. I don't think it's gonna impact the timelines measurably one way or the other.
Well, just so you know, Sustainability Partners is not gonna go any further until we make this decision. Cause they wanna know for final funding, they need
How
to
many?
know how many units they're gonna.
Well, and that's what I'm saying. I would,
Well, then I guess to that end, can we fine line whatever work we feel like must be done for DOT? So that when we present this at the April 2nd committee meeting, we give them the clear choice of it's 7, 17, or 5 and 20, or whatever that is. Can we, I guess, put a budget together for what we think that entrance needs to gobble up out of this? Cause we know we can spend the monies on that.
well, and then some, but I think that's a fair number to have in front of us, but at the same time, what's Sustainability Partners' time frame? So say we did vote today to move this forward. What's their process look like before we know we're,
So then they gotta go to the financiers board meeting, when they have a scheduled board meeting, and present it to them and get it approved, and then they have a lot of legal work to do in order to get all of the, legalese set up for us, so.
But
They didn't tell me how long that would take, but for the meter process, when we did the meters, it was at least a couple of months.
So if we waited today and we get a decision out of the committee to come back and say do 7 and 17, we would move fast on those 7, but the 17 then might not be here until, if they got a notice to proceed on the April 14th meeting,
so
May,
we're pushing everything
June.
back a month.
Yeah,
But it could be longer, because you gotta realize the contractor has to put it into their construction schedule.
right, but what I'm saying is if sustainability is a go on June 15th, that still gives us July 15th, August 15th, September 15th to actually get the sustainability units partner, get those units here. By then, the site's gonna be pristinely prepped and ready to slide everything right onto, cause we'll have done the 7 and we'll have just been waiting on the 17 to show, unless there's disagreement on that.
Well, the one thing we need to work out is the vendor, whether we want Kurt to do the site prep or.
Yeah.
One thing we could do, and I asked this question, if Kurt wants to do all the site prep, we could actually back the site prep out. And he didn't tell me how much, he said he'd have to look into it, but it would reduce the cost per unit.
Well, is that something
Well, the way I read it is that the installer would do the subgrade preparation, the base course below its slab and the slab. And it would still be expected for us to put the utilities into the pad.
so really it's just the subgrade preparation in addition, so that's,
Yeah.
But it also includes leveling the lot, and it also includes, doing the drainage, complying with the drainage requirements.
I'd
The backfill.
rather have Kurt do that than anyone.
Okay.
But if he's able, I mean, again, and he,
I think we need
But
to
we
get,
also need to realize that Kurt's short,
well, that's what that's
Two
what I
people.
was gonna say.
that we haven't been able to replace yet, and they were highly qualified people, that it's not gonna be easy to find replacements. And we have other projects like roads that we wanna do.
Right, that was my next, so Kurt, yeah, I don't feel like, I mean, whatever you feel like is the best use of your time this summer, I definitely wanna,
I'll do everything I can to do what y'all want to get done. Okay.
So again, I just wanna understand, if we need to make a decision today, if there's, I mean, if we're looking at moving these houses in October, November by not making a decision today, I don't wanna see that happen. Because quite frankly, as far as I'm concerned, we're gonna be a year behind if they show up in September of this year.
All I know is the original projection for the 6 units was to be done by October. And it ended up being done by March. That's what I'm worried about.
Well, originally it was 30 units by October. Was our-
Well, that was way back when we hadn't done any
I'm just
work.
saying,
Yeah,
but we're gonna be a full year behind getting 30 units in. So my point is, I sincerely wanna see this, a bow on this in good weather this year. So if you feel like that we need to make that decision to keep that on track, it sounds like Sustainability Partners is really the more so.
well, it's two things. It's one, it's Sustainability Partners. It's three things. It's the vendor, Zia, and when they can work the construction of these into their schedule. And the other thing is, what are we gonna sacrifice in Kurt's team's workload by trying to push him on getting this done?
Well, I just wanna mention, when we first had the discussion about the potential opportunity of getting 6 homes in. This was in August or September. I said, if the houses show up mid-October, it's doable. Well, we started getting houses just after Thanksgiving. So, yeah, I think in a
But
sense,
the lots weren't ready until October.
yeah. But I was doing road work, cause I knew the houses weren't gonna be there till December. I guess what I'm getting at is that, if we set a goal to be ready to have the rest of the houses in August, we need to be prepared for the fact that in reality, it could be
October.
when they show up.
Well, I mean, in that case, if the council would prefer, I would be happy to make a provisional motion. The only things that I think we need to check on are making sure we don't tick off Housing New Mexico with any of our changes here. I don't think we will, but they gave us $2.9 million. It'd be good to at least go give them a heads up before we make a big change.
We are having another meeting in 12 days, so, I mean, maybe we could
On
vote
31st,
in 12 days from now.
yeah.
And I
If
don't
we feel
know, I
like we
know,
need to accelerate it.
and again, like I said, I don't think there's a whole lot here to discuss as far as the committee's concerned. But again, I do value their input.
Well, the other way to go about that would be to, summarize this in an email to them, let them go watch. I mean, we've been debating it now for some time. We all want to get it done. We're not trying to go around them. I don't think any of them would feel that way, so.
I think that's fair. If this is just sent to them and based on the discussion we've had today, and then maybe be prepared to make this decision in 12 days.
Yeah, we can maybe get those answers from for housing.
Rocky, you okay with that?
So what,
And I have another concern just about the potential for inflation that we're gonna see with things going on politically worldwide.
well, but we're not, so you're saying we can lock in a price on these 7? If we made this decision today, we would lock in the price on 7 homes. And we would.
It would actually lock in the price on all 24 homes.
Well, we can't do that until Sustainability Partners gives us 100% okay. We can't
But
do that on
but
80%.
Mike agreed that this price is good for us, for Sustainability Partners, or for both of us. If,
I wish you would have led with that. No, that's a true consideration. I mean, with fuel prices, everything goes up, as you probably all know. Even if they die down later in the year, the price we get today, that's a fair point. Because
How long is the price, if we agree to it, how long is it good for?
Well, I guess go ahead, Rocky.
and when did you get the price?
Last week.
And then what have they indicated to you, if we were to pull the trigger today on those 7, when would they be able to mobilize? So it sounds like,
Everything's 2 weeks, it's always 2.
I don't know, it turned into a month, but it's,
What I told him was, my goal was to have them in by the end of August, and he said that he felt certain that they could comply with that,
With all 24, or was that just with the 7?
with all 24.
Wow.
based on a decision made today.
Well, it's based on a decision made today that then would start the sustainability partners process of getting their final decision. Which again, I think is, I don't know how long I didn't ask, they didn't say how long it's gonna take, but when we got to this stage with the meter project, before they got a final contract to us, it was almost 2 months, if not more. I don't remember exactly.
So just from a nuts and bolts perspective, then, if all we can do today is vote on a notice to proceed, we don't have a contract in front of us to vote on. So are we looking, is what Rocky has done gonna be the RFP, or are we gonna notice to proceed and then RFP to Zia and whomever else? Is that process still to come, and that's why we need to go ahead and have a notice to proceed vote today? Is that where we're at, or have I?
That's a good point. We would have to go out to RFP on these because it's over $60,000 and they don't have a state contract.
So really, all we can vote on today is,
Is that correct, Rocky?
I did too.
So if they have a state contract, it does speed things up.
Well, what if we do that? What if we vote today to do a notice to proceed on option 2? That gives us time, I mean, because again, we're gonna have to approve a sustainability's contract at a later date, but that would give them enough to go forward. And then we can, the workforce housing committee's not gonna have a problem with us bringing 7 more homes in.
no.
So we're not necessarily committing to,
We're not voting on Zia Homes for 7 at this price today. We're voting to proceed on option 2 and all the due diligence and back-end work that everyone in this room is gonna have to do to make that reality before the
I'm
next couple of
comfortable
council
with
meetings.
that.
But now that Julie's standing up, I'm worried we've run afoul of
No,
procurement.
gentlemen, you're fine. The only thing, you need to consider is that at least 2 of those homes need to be ADA compliant.
It's in the bid.
But
Same
I mean,
price.
when you're going for, the village is gonna go for the 7 homes or whatever, have you decided where the location of those ADA compliant homes are gonna be? That was my concern, is that they were readily accessible for, somebody in wheelchair access.
But Kurt, have you taken that? into
Yes,
consideration?
and one of the 7 would be ADA compliant, the locations are picked out.
Okay.
Anything else that we need to be thinking of?
You're good.
Why was it 2? Is that like a,
It's a certain percentage out of your.
5% of your total units have to be ADA compliant. Since it's 1.5, we have to round up to 2.
but if you had 13 initially, you just need to have 1. And then the other one would be down the line.
And I just wanna clarify one last clarification. Kurt, if we buy if we commit to proceed with 7 more homes, you still feel like we have the funds to tidy up the entrance off of 434?
I do.
That is important to me.
The
So-
biggest challenge of that will be getting, now, our paving contractor that we use, cause the statewide price agreement and everything, Jim Emulsions, they're still in the general vicinity. So the challenge would be if we're paving just such a small section, having somebody mob in for such a small job.
Well, quite frankly, it could be less than, the 60,000.
Yeah.
Would give us an option.
You could also approve dollars to have me pave the road around Monteverdi Lake, and we can just tie the two together.
Now we're getting creative, I like it, I like it.
Okay, well, is there any questions or discussion? Rocky, did you have something else? So I would ask for a motion then to buy 7 more units and a notice to proceed with Sustainability Partners to buy 17 units and do not curb and gutter and asphalt the road.
Well, I will make a motion then on item A, to approve moving forward with option 2. Moving forward with buying 7 more units and engaging Sustainability Partners to do the remaining 17 units and delaying the curb and gutter, to the end of the project. With the provision that between now and the RFP being accepted, we make sure we have Housing New Mexico's blessing on all this.
Oh, and asphalt.
And asphalt, yeah, the asphalt curb gutter, that will all be delayed until the end of the project.
I'll second that.
Roll call vote on item A. Mayor Pro Tem Crane,
Aye.
Counselor Howe,
Aye.
and Counselor Curry.
Aye.
Motion passed.
Okay, item B, we'd like to have a discussion to approve resolution 2026-23, the acceptance and approval of the fiscal year 25 audit.
Strap in, this is a long one. Just kidding. Mr. Mayor, Council, Manager Weir and Clerk. We're just wrapping up the FY 25 audit. So we hired a third party, a CPA firm that came in, performed our audit. We submitted to the state. The state has returned it back to us. And so now it's just before you for acceptance and approval. If you have any questions, I'm happy to answer.
So I know how big our finance is, our finance effort. Are you comfortable now that we have enough people and the right people on board to pull ourselves up to where we wanna be for the next audit?
Yes, sir, and to be clear, it won't just be our staff that is doing it. We're actually bringing in, they're actually already working with us. We have a CPA firm, and that was at the request of the auditors that they strongly recommended that we actually hire an outside firm to come in and provide basically a disinterested look at our numbers and then we make the adjustments based off of their assessment.
Okay.
So they're actually already in the middle of that for us right now. And then part of some of the stuff that was in there, more like a governance type stuff, we're taking care of in-house. And so having the staff here that we have now is helping us with that effort. So we will be greatly improved. We already are.
Okay.
Any further discussion? Make a motion?
I make a motion to approve item B, approve resolution 2026-23, acceptance and approval of FY 25 audit.
A second.
Roll call vote on item B. Mayor Pro Tem Crane,
Aye.
Counselor Howe,
Aye.
and Counselor Curry.
Aye.
Motion passed.
Okay, I'd like to this time, get a motion to move into executive session for NMSA 10-15-1H2, limited personnel matter. I believe in attendance will be Counselor Howe, Crane, Curry, Manager Weir, and Chief Vance,
And eventually Chief Hogre.
and eventually Chief Holbrook.
Well, I will make a motion to move into an executive session per NMSA 10-15-1H2 to discuss limited personnel matters. In attendance will be members of council, the mayor, village manager, and separately Chief Vance and Chief Hobart.
I second.
Roll call vote on item C. Mayor Pro Tem Crane,
Aye.
Counselor Howard,
Aye.
and Counselor Curry.
Aye.
Motion passed.